Oh my God, it's on. Hey. Hi, welcome. Welcome back. I know you're like, where has Nicole been? Feel like that too. It's been a busy season, but I'm back, and especially because there's so much news. Okay, now, first of all, I'm just gonna, while everybody's getting on, I'm gonna put this lower. Okay, really? How did I already catch up? No way. I didn't. Okay. All right. All right, there's so much going on right now here in the Middle East, and I just like so I'm like bubbling over with like I have to tell somebody I know. Like, so where's like I've been gone, I've been AWOL for a while from the lives, but I've been doing some other things. Like, for instance, I started a podcast, and it's been awesome, and I feel like I've been able to show like other things, like rather than this like erratic like breaking news unbelievable things are happening. I've been able to take some really important topics and flesh them out, and so that's really cool. So my most recent one, I interviewed a man who was born and raised in Gaza City, who still has family there and property there. And he's actually in the U.S. now. He left several years ago, and but he's in touch with the people there. He was a pastor at a church in Gaza, and the I think only evangelical church. I think it's the only one. I think there's only like 200 evangelicals in Gaza. So he was. He still goes back like 3 times a year. Of course, he hasn't been able to go since October 7th, 2023. So, but he still is in touch with people. He's on weekly Zoom calls with them for their congregation, and it's unbelievable, like the stories that he told. I'm not going to tell you all that right now, but you can go to the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you can actually see there's a tab for podcasts. And if you subscribe, you can get an alert when the podcast comes out, which will be weekly. But you can go to the podcast and you can look for it. It says something about what's happening now in Gaza, so you'll know which one it is. And then also on my website, nickjan.com, which is like my name written down here. Nickjan.com will also show you, you can, oh, excuse me, as Lucas calls, of course. Hello? Hello? Yep, no service. He's in the old city. Okay, call dad. Okay, so anyway, yeah, so that's that. So are like if you guys are commenting, this is so ridiculous, but I cannot see. I cannot, I'm looking to see if I can see on Facebook. Yep, here's Lucas again. Hello. I can't hear you. It's not working. There's no service. Yes, yeah, I'll try. Bye. Okay. Sorry, Lucas wants screen time, and I can't see. Oh, there's chats. Oh my God. Okay. Yes, I found the chat thing on here. All right, awesome. Hi, Laura. Do you celebrate Easter May 5th with the Greeks? You know what? I never did. I didn't even know about it, but now it is so wonderful to have options for Easter. I know that sounds sacrilegious, but it's actually awesome, and I love to celebrate twice to really get into the holiday from two different perspectives. And I just wrote an article, I don't know if it's been published yet, on the media line about the different dates for Easter and why they're different. And it's so interesting because this Orthodox guy, Armenian Orthodox, he said the other day, he's like, the Orthodox are more biblical. He's like, we got it right because we go according to the Bible. And you know what? He's right, because the Orthodox purposely do their Easter after Passover because Jesus celebrated Passover. So it has to have been that he was crucified buried and rose again during or after Passover. So when the Catholics dropped that stipulation, the Catholics, etc., dropped that stipulation when they switched from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. They kept two stipulations, which was after March 21st, the spring equinox, and the other thing was after the full moon, after the spring equinox. I think that's it. The first Sunday after the full moon, after the spring equinox. So two things. And then the other stipulation, the Orthodox churches kept, which was after 21st, after the full moon, after Passover. So that is fascinating. So I was like, wow, good for them. So anyway, yeah, so that was, I will also celebrate May 5th. So I celebrated, yes, but it's so hard here because it's a regular work day. Sunday's a regular work day here in Israel, so it's awkward. It's weird. So anyway, yeah, so that's the holidays. Now, I have nothing related to. Oh wait, I got to give Lucas screen time. Excuse me. Yeah. And Daniel will probably come out here singing any minute now. Okay, family. Screen time. Sorry, guys. For Lucas. Screen time. Sure. WhatsApp. Let's give him more WhatsApp. God, sorry about this. We'll give him at least an hour. I'll be less than an hour, right? Okay. And I'll take downtime off. Give him till 10. All right, there we go. Oh my gosh. All right, he's in the old city right now, so I have to do that. And he's got to call Tony to get a ride home. So anyway, okay, I'll start with Tony. I'll start with the news because Tony just happens to be right now in the Armenian Quarter. And in the past 36 hours, the police have been in the Armenian Quarter 3 times for various reasons. And, you know, if you're following the issue with the parking that was sold to a developer, which might be, who might be backed by a Jewish land reclamation organization. But the patriarch has now canceled the deal, but the deal may or may not be canceled and only a court can decide. Nevertheless, the Armenians are having a 24-hour, they have a tent manned on site at the parking lot to keep people out, because I guess possession is like 9/10 of the law also here, and whoever is there and on the land will possess the land. So anyway, this is in court right now, and there was a big deal yesterday where the police came and started dismantling the huts, the plastic huts that were erected for the hired security guards. The security guards hired by the Armenians who have set up a fund to pay for this. And there's also like a legal team doing pro bono to try to keep the land Armenian. Now, what happens if this parking lot, just a parking lot, goes? It's something like, oh, I forgot the numbers. I haven't done the story for so long. Is it 20% of the Armenian Quarter? Is it more than that? Something huge chunk of the Armenian Quarter. But of course, parking. Let me ask you something. Where do you park your car when you get home from work? You park right by your house. You get in your car, you go to work. You get in your car, you go to school. You need your car. Your car determines your livelihood. Your parking determines where you live and where you go to school, where you go to work. So basically what this deal means is the beginning of the end of the 1700-year Armenian presence in Jerusalem. There's a thing called the status quo, and the status quo is about leaving the land as it is until there's a final status negotiation. If the land gets sold or given to an organization that is a different ethnic makeup, it will change the demographic character of that area, and hence change an entire the negotiating point for who gets what if Jerusalem is divided for an Israeli and a Palestinian capital. It's crazy. Anyway, this is so insider, are so like intricate as far as why and why it's so important. Also very important to preserve the Armenian character, the Armenian Quarter. The Armenian Quarter is the only quarter of the four in the Old City that is actually a nationality. Whereas the others are religion. There's Christian, Jewish, and Muslim quarters. And the Armenian Quarter is both Christian and Armenian. And the fact that they have this quarter for so long, for 1700 years, just means that their presence is an integral part of the mosaic that is currently Jerusalem. So anyway, as always, watching that story, and we went racing there last night. There was a press conference, and I will be doing a podcast episode on this to really get understanding, because as you can hear, there's like a lot to explain in one, and just like wrap it up in 5 minutes. So that is if there is a world standing after tomorrow. Okay, great segue from like the whether or not I will have another podcast episode will depend on what happens with the Iranian threats, which are very loud right now and being taken very seriously. Now so why are they threatening? Let's start with why they're threatening. There were Iranian generals in the embassy, their embassy in Damascus, Syria, earlier this week, and there was a targeted assassination that took out several of them, very high up. They're saying that this is the biggest assassination since Qasem Soleimani was assassinated by the U.S. Was it 2020 during Trump's time? And that was huge, and there were repercussions from that as well. But of course, now the Iranians are saying there will be repercussions from this. And Israel, is going to get it. Like this was the rhetoric today. Now, interestingly enough, tomorrow is the last Friday of Ramadan. Friday is the holy day for Muslims. So Friday is the day during all Fridays, but especially during Ramadan, where Muslims go to pray at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is in Jerusalem in the Old City, also known as the Temple Mount. So last week, 125,000 Muslims went up to pray there. And, people were worried. If you go back to actually my first podcast was about, everybody was expecting like the perfect storm, that Ramadan, along with the war and everything, that this was going to be explosive. But it's been really quiet. There have been terror attacks that have occurred since then. And of course, the war is still going on, but nothing of that is related to Ramadan necessarily. So anyway, but the last Friday of Ramadan, it is also the Iranian Al-Quds Day, Jerusalem Day. So, and to bring this back full circle, Hamas, when they launched this attack on Israel on October 7th, the name of the attack was Al-Tufan, the Al-Aqsa flood. Al-Aqsa flood, and Al-Aqsa being the mosque in Jerusalem, and were coming from Gaza. Actually, when I heard all this happening, and you saw them penetrating like through the barrier, the wall and the fence between Israel and Gaza, into all the communities and cities. There were kibbutzes and whatever, and cities around the periphery of Gaza. And I thought they might get to Jerusalem. I mean, if one of them jumped in a car and didn't stop, and they just kept going, they would have made it actually to Jerusalem. So I wondered if that was actually their intention. But I'm not sure. That's just something I thought, like, wow, if they're saying Al-Aqsa, they're trying to get here. Kids, stay in the house. So anyway, anyway, will it come full circle, being Al-Aqsa, being Jerusalem Day, being that Israel is widely believed to be behind the assassination of these Iranian generals, though they do not say that as a policy, but Israel is behind a lot of these, and or allegedly behind a lot of these, however you say that properly. And so there's a lot of talk now. So all day long, of course, the news commercial, but the news all day long. And even, one, I still don't know what this word is in Hebrew. It's one of these abbreviations. I think it's like maybe intelligence or something. Like, I think it has something to do with intelligence services. The head of one of these said, the worst is not behind us. The worst is ahead of us. And, he's referring to October 7th, which was pretty bad. And, Israel just was caught like with its pants down. But but he said the worst is still ahead of us. And now, on the same note, there have been all these messages and alerts going out to like stock up, days of war, missiles everywhere. The missiles from Hezbollah can't all be stopped by Iron Dome. They're stronger than the ones coming from Gaza. They'll go through the bomb shelters. Like, there will be no electricity. There will be this. Now, these messages had circulated in waves in the past since October 7th, because this is a multi-front war in a way, though most of it's concentrated in Gaza. Right now, there's also always the north. There's always rockets coming from the north, and there are the Houthis. The Houthis in Yemen are shooting, firing missiles and drones from 2,000 kilometers south of here, across the Red Sea, over Saudi Arabia, over Jordan, over Egypt, to Israel. One landed on an Israeli base, and one landed in a Israeli kibbutz in southern Israel, in Eilat, just this past week. So they're still active. They're not. Their threats haven't manifested like to anything serious, but they're still active, and they are disrupting shipping in the Red Sea. That's for sure. And the U.S. That's where the U.S. and Britain got involved, and were like, oh, no, don't mess with our shipping. And so that's where they started getting involved against the Houthis. But meanwhile, Hezbollah, you probably don't know this if you're not here, Hezbollah is firing dozens of rockets a day. Sometimes, like some days there's maybe one or two, and then other days there's like 70. And though, there are some direct hits, and some people are being killed, but many of the communities up there are evacuated as well. And so there isn't so much civilian damage, but it's happening every day. So the question is, will this all froth over in the coming days? The Hezbollah is Iranian backed, the Houthis are Iranian backed, and Hamas had a lot of funding here from Iran as well for this latest incursion, this latest operation. They apparently were funded by Iran. And then the other thing that Iran could do is actually attack Israeli or Jewish installations anywhere around the world, like groups of Israeli tourists, or Jewish, temples, or community centers. So it's not just that they might attack Israel. Their revenge could come in the form of attacking something related to Israel or Jews elsewhere in the world, anywhere they can go. I was amazed when we were in Armenia that we were standing on the line. Like, this was our plane going to Tel Aviv, and this was the line for the plane going to Tehran. And I was like, that's the closest an Israeli and Iranian are ever going to come to each other. They're right here. Like, that, there's that plane and there's that plane. They're flying out together. And I was amazed. Well, which just goes to show you that, and also Turkey, Israelis can go to Turkey, Iranians can go to Turkey. So the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, they're everywhere, and so it's just very interesting. So we'll see. So the news, World War III, stock up, not just stock up, it wasn't stock up. It was like the end of the world is happening tomorrow. Then the military spokesman gets on, and he's like, We didn't change the guidelines. We didn't change the orders. Everything's fine. Don't worry. Nobody, no rush on the stores, no, getting your ticket out of the country. And I'm like, what do I believe? Anyway, I tend not to go down the direction of warmongering. A lot of reporters do, and a lot of prophecy people do as well. They love it. It sells. It sells news. It sells books. It sells speaking engagements. So I have to say, today I was like, not really sure. Today I might be a warmonger. I'm not sure. But by the end of the day, and seeing the Israeli military spokesman say, no, we didn't change our command or anything. Oh, but they did. He said that. Right. So I would like to ask a question, Admiral. But why then did the Israeli army cancel all? Let me find the release or the announcement that they made. They canceled all leave for, and here, I'll read it to you. In accordance with the situational assessment, it has been decided that that leave will be temporarily paused for all IDF combat units. The IDF is at war, and the deployment of forces is under continuous assessment according to requirements. Okay, so I was like, all right, we're out. That's it. War happening. And then a couple hours later, he's like, no, don't worry. So I'm like, all right. I'm not feeling worried right now, but feeling is not fact. So anyway, that's that. Tomorrow, if there's something going on, you'll find me here. All right, what else? That's all of Iran, stuff like that. Now, Gaza. All right, so go to my podcast page. You can find it. Okay, so I don't think I finished saying that because I had to get Lucas screen time. Right, so if you go to my podcast page, that is at nickjan.com, and then you look on the top, the Inside Scoop Jerusalem podcast. The latest is about, the latest one is an interview with the man who was originally from Gaza, and he still has contacts there. His family's there. He has family that has been killed. He has congregants that were killed, and it's a devastating story. So the situation in Gaza is just deteriorating. One surprising thing is that in the last 2 days, there have been quite a few rockets fired from Gaza. And I'm like, how is that possible? Now, since I've been on it, it's been a while. A couple months ago, and I may have reported this, the IDF, the Israeli army, was operating very heavily in Shifa Hospital in the northern part of Gaza. And they said at the time that it was, they found evidence of hostages that had been there. And and they did this big operation there, and it was, controversial. There were a lot of issues with hospitals that were quite controversial at the time. And that was one of them. And then they said the north is under control, and then the ground operation moved south, like to Khan Yunis. And now the big debate is Rafah. Israel says we cannot win and root out Hamas if we do not go to Rafah. Now, Rafah is the southernmost city in Gaza, and it's on the border with Egypt. It's actually where I think you cross the border. Like if you want to, the ones who are fleeing to Egypt, if they are allowed through, they go there. So then it's under control. We're moving south, and then suddenly in the last 2 weeks they were back in the north at Shifa Hospital, and it was a 2-week operation. It was very deadly for both sides. I mean, several soldiers were killed, as well as several Palestinians. They said that they killed hundreds, and arrested hundreds of Hamas terrorists. But I thought it was under control, so I didn't know like what happened. And so it's interesting. So while there are people who say, like, for instance, why was this 80-year-old woman shot by a sniper? Like, she probably walked into what is now like considered a kill zone, and she was just going to her house, and just because she was going to her house, she was killed. Okay, but at the same time, There was an article today in Haaretz, which is one of the Israeli papers, some reporter who spoke with people in Gaza, and they are so discontent with Hamas. And they said that the media is actually doing a disservice by not reporting what we have to say. Like we are tired of Hamas, and they're taking the aid. They are. They got us into the situation, and they said we want this reported. But then on the other hand, you had like one of the biggest tragedies, one of the biggest, if you can choose, and during this horror of war, was that Israel fired at a humanitarian convoy and killed 7 international aid workers that were there under the auspices of not UNRWA, not the debated and everybody hates UNRWA, right? But they were under the auspices of World Central Kitchen, which is an organization that was also donating meals to Israeli evacuees, displaced people in Israel. They were operating in Gaza, and Israel admits that it fired at the convoy 3 times. Like there was, after some of them managed to escape to another truck, they fired at that truck, and it was this has widened the rift that has been going on between Israel and the rest of the world, but especially the U.S. And Lloyd Austin, I think, what is he, the defense secretary in the U.S.? He said that this tragedy reinforced the expected concern over a potential military operation in Rafah by Israel, because there is just too much. Gaza is an overcrowded 2 million people living in 26 miles of land. And already, like in Rafah, for instance, more than 1 million people evacuated from the north of Israel. Because remember, the north, everybody got the north, and then Israel said that they got the north under control, even though they're back now. But 1 million people moved south. And so there's now over 1 million in Rafah. And if this can happen with the aid workers, then imagine the civilian casualties that could potentially occur. So this is the reason for this rift that's happening between Israel and Western leaders, and even like America is still probably more so supporting Israel compared to the other countries, but even so, their tone is getting more stern with Israel at this point, of like what you should not be going into Rafah, and to calling for ceasefires and everything, because there hasn't. By the way, there's not even talk of a ceasefire right now. So, but that segues what I want to say into what's happening within Israel, because within Israel there is also a very high level of discontent. We're almost back at the levels pre-October 7th, when the country was divided over this proposed judicial reform, and there were protests every week. There were hundreds of thousands, well, usually like up to about 200,000 people protesting in Tel Aviv and in different areas of the country. The protesters were against the judicial reform, and against Netanyahu's government. Now, within the people who are opposed to the judicial reform are people also, wow, there's a rocket alert right now in the south. Like, how is there any rocket launcher left in Gaza? I don't know. Okay, so within the protest movement was always an element that has also always been anti-Netanyahu. And there's this, it's called the Crime Minister movement. And it's been, it's a slick and well-funded, what do you call it? movement that wants to remove Netanyahu. He's been prime minister for, well, I lost count. Was it like, it's over 10 years or something? And there was like a few breaks in the middle, but yeah, really long time. And so they want him out. And this judicial reform, they fear, would actually keep him in different ways. There could be like, there's like, it looks like, according to, how it's the law, the proposed law is written, it could keep him in like for, they could just vote like, and then have a majority vote and overrule they could always have the majority. Basically, with the majority, they can just continue forever and ever and never change the government and never have like what they could. And I'm not saying they would. I'm just saying that was according to the way it was going. So, so there were protests, there was a dissension, there was disunity. Then October 7th happened, the country united, and, was like, that lasted for a long time. And this brings us now to the 253 hostages that were taken from Israel. There were included in them were children, foreign workers, and, many Israelis, most of them, like a lot of them young people taken from the party, some soldiers, even elderly. Like I think there's like a couple of 80-year-old men that are still in Gaza. So there were a couple of releases, and they are in the beginning, like I think it was in November, late October, November, there were a couple of releases, and there are still, however, to this day, 134 hostages remaining in Gaza, and so there is, like, at this point, absolutely no deal to be had. I think the Israeli delegation announced that we just came back and we gave them our offer, and they said, and we can't compromise anymore on this offer. That this is already like too much, and I don't know what it is, but it's already too much. So anyway. So that's so there's nothing. But now the families of the hostages are living in a nightmare and are constantly protesting. Now the protests that were before October 7th for anti-judicial reform, now they are just get the hostages out. And I'm not saying that all of the 134 family members are saying that it's a deal at any cost, but I feel like the loudest voices, and probably the majority, are saying a deal at any cost. The other thing is the Knesset, which is the Israeli parliament, has just gone on spring break. Now, this just outraged people. Like, how can you go on spring recess when you've got 134 people go, like, work, make a deal, meet with the families, do something? So nothing is really happening in that regard. It's not moving forward. At this point, it's not even like, when it's in the news and every day it's like hopes up, hopes down. We're not even there now. Like, we were there a couple of weeks ago. It was like every day, oh, they're getting closer to a deal. They're going to reach a deal. This one fell through, but they're going to reach another. But they're talk nada. We're not even close to that. Like, it's not even being talked about. Like, oh, there's a deal in the works. So that means it's really far from a deal. There were hostages that have been released. One of them gave an interview with the New York Times. And she said that she was sexually abused when she was there. And she said she can't imagine what is going on now for the hostages. So that's part of the what these families are saying. Like, every day that they're there is like the chance for more violence, more abuse. Also, there is Gaza itself, is on the verge of famine. There was an organization that said that official famine could be declared by May, and so we're talking like that's just like 4 weeks from now, something like that. Now, of course, there's already a lack of food in Gaza. There are the people in the north, especially. I don't know what the deal is with the north, but they're going hungry, and then I think like the World Central Kitchen is going to pull out, and UNRWA, lost its funding and everything. So there's not a solution. Oh, and they were dropping air packages of aid, and apparently that even killed people when it fell. The U.S. was talking about building a dock into Gaza, but that's like a nightmare if you think about it, because the soldiers themselves, the American soldiers, won't step foot in Gaza, so they'll have to get contractors, and so that's just like what you call a balagan. And I don't know if that's still happening. Actually, I haven't heard anything about it. But there is extreme civil unrest right now in Israel. It is back to the height of October 6th protests, the protests like from October 6th and before. Every week, actually every day there's something, but every week, again, Saturday's the night for the big protest. There was, I think, a 4-day camp out here, Tent City in Jerusalem, with the families. They're trying to get into the Knesset. I have an article on my website about how they went in for Purim, and they gave Purim gifts to. Purim gifts are supposed to be like full of goodies and treats, food, but they gave what they presume is the diet of the hostages, which what their assessment was like a quarter of a pita, 2 olives, and a scoop of cream cheese. So they said that was their message, is like, get them out because they're starving. So, hold on. Okay. So civil unrest, calling for the government to come down again. Oh my God, I didn't even talk about my favorite. This is not even relevant now. I mean, it is relevant. It's completely relevant, but like, it's not even the big news. It was the big news last week. Oh, wait. What did Biden say to Netanyahu? Biden told Netanyahu in a conversation today that there is an immediate need. There's a need for an immediate ceasefire. Tell your negotiating team to offer an immediate ceasefire. Sorry, I'm translating, so I'm not so great at. I don't know the exact words. I'm sure it sounds better. Okay, and then also these rockets that I told you about when I heard what I saw the siren alert, that it was for the first time in 3 months, rockets at Netivot, which is a city in the south near Sderot. So anyway, wow, crazy. Okay, that is crazy. And yes, and today also at Kfar Aza and another place, so several places, maybe 4 in the south today, which means that Hamas is still operating in Gaza. Of course, in the north, we know Hezbollah is still operating and has a massive arsenal. So we'll follow up on, what this conversation between Netanyahu and Biden, but that was like what the news was all waiting for today, was to see like, what is Biden going to say to Bibi? And anyway, so okay, so going back to the civil unrest here in the country, it is bad. It is cantankerous. When you've got people who are in grief and trauma, and their family members' lives are at stake, there's a lot of raw emotion, and there is what they believe is not an acceptable response from the government. Now, yesterday, Benny Gantz, who is in the opposition, but who joined the war cabinet to be with Netanyahu, and he and his general, who's like the second in his party, there's another general, the two of them are in the war cabinet. He made a big announcement yesterday. It turned out not to be big. It's like, I'm going to make an announcement. Everybody's like, he's going to leave the cabinet. No, he simply said, I think we need to have elections within 6 months, like by September, we need to have elections. And so So on one side, Netanyahu's party was like, oh, you're playing politics and this is not the time to play politics. We're in a war. And then the opposition was like, just get out of the war cabinet already. What are you doing? Like, so anyway, it was like, that was a big nothing. So, all right, you can, feel free to ask questions because I'm at the end. I'm just going to tell you like this one thing that I think is funny. If I go off the screen, do you still see me? Okay, hopefully. Anyway, okay, so the last thing I want to say is really insider baseball Israel that is unbelievable. So last week, the exemption that was added to a law um, that the exemption for ultra Orthodox to not serve in the military because it's mandatory in Israel, mandatory military service when you turn 18. But the ultra Orthodox Jews have always gotten an exemption. But a couple of years ago, a law passed saying that they too must serve in the army. They no longer get this exemption. And uh, and somehow one government was like, no, but well, let's delay that until, and the date was set March 31st, 2024. And the date came around, and the government asked the attorney general to stop it from expiring, and the attorney general said no. So as of April 1st, the ultra Orthodox Jews are supposed to also be drafted. All right, now why don't they serve in the army? Now I need to do a deeper dive into this someday, so I'm sorry, this is going to be like a little like this will be shallow, but their belief is that by learning the Torah and by praying that they are protecting the country, and they're like interceding for the redemption of the country by doing that. So the thing is, they get stipends to study, to go to a seminary, yeshiva, and then they also, by the way, get stipends for each kid, and they have a lot of kids that tend to have like larger families than the regular secular families here. So they actually, so they say that we should not serve in the army. We should serve, by praying and studying the Torah and doing mitzvot, good deeds. And so that places the burden of serving in this country and in the army and paying taxes on the secular population. And they're the ones now in the middle of a war. So this thing expired in the middle of a war when you've got 600 soldiers killed during the war, whether it was on October 7th itself or since then in the ground invasion. 600 have been killed. And so that inflames the rift, the eternal rift between the secular and the religious Israelis even more so. So that's what's happening right now. Now, my questions are, as of April 1st, what is April 4th now? Are these 18-year-olds who are ultra-Orthodox Haredi Jews, are they considered draft dodgers? Can they be arrested? And as Emily asked, are they protesting? Oh, are they protesting? So the other day, we had 4 massive protests going on, 2 in Jerusalem, 1 by the ultra-Orthodox, 1 by the hostage families, plus anti-government, that has seeped into the whole hostage that's they're riding along. I don't know. It's like all a mix now. And then in Tel Aviv, also like Tel Aviv area, the ultra-Orthodox protesting, and the hostage families and the anti-government protesters also protesting. The roads were shut down. Everything was like immobile, immovable in like the major cities in this country. Everybody was protesting. The ultra Orthodox have said that they will die before they will serve. Now the other thing is, and I actually put this as like the quote of the week in one of my podcasts, I don't remember which one, they said that the chief rabbi of one of the different sects said if this law goes through or if the exemption expires, we're all going to leave the country. Now, mind you, they all would leave the country. He said, we're all leaving the country. They will be like, oh, okay, where are we going? You know, pack their bags and go. And there's two quotes that I have to say. One was Aryeh Golan on a news channel, one of the news analysts. He said, he's like, yeah, good luck with that. If you go overseas, you're going to have to pay taxes and live among people who don't actually shut down your neighborhood for Shabbat, which is what happens here. They get their neighborhoods shut down for Shabbat. So anyway, good luck with that, because then you'll be living somewhere where they don't respect you at all, and you will have to pay taxes, and they will jail you if you don't, as opposed to here in Israel. And then the other quote of the week from that one was Yaakov Katz, who's the former editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post. I saw like he had a quote on Twitter, and he's like, really? He's like, I'll pay his ticket. So I was like, oh my God, I can't. So anyway, yeah, this is all going on. It's all it's all crazy. So now I haven't heard from, I know this is the longest week in history, because that was only April 1st that I guess all the protests were, and that's just 3 days ago. And it feels like a month ago, which is why I thought it must be later. And then since then, we've had 3 police invasions of the Armenian parking lot since then, which they also said, by the way, I'm waiting for updates. Maybe there won't be, but one of them had just said to Tony, Tony said, well, you can't take that, it's ours. And he goes, well, I'll tell you I have to go check, or I'll be back I'll tell you in an hour and a half, or we'll find out in an hour and a half. Like, what does that mean? Like, is something happening in an hour and a half? So I don't know. So I keep checking my phone. But anyway, okay. So, Justin asked, where else would they go? Where would they go? Back to Ukraine? I don't know. I mean, where would they go? Like, would they go to Brooklyn? Would they go to Ukraine? Maybe not all parts of Ukraine are being attacked right now. Maybe they'd go, I think Uman is the city that they love to go to. So maybe they would go there. Let's put the religious at the borders. Yes, Ohan, let's put the religious at the borders. So if they really believe in their prayers, they can go. All right, so you know something? There's one kibbutz in the south that is a religious kibbutz. It's like people that go to live there are religious, then they're all happy to observe and Shabbat and kosher and stuff like that. It was not attacked. So what do you think they say? What do you think they say? That they said it was because they pray. As they say, because they're whatever. It was their prayers that kept Hamas from attacking their particular kibbutz, and the kibbutzim that they did rampage were secular, like Be'eri, very secular, left wing, wealthy. These are the names, the things that are thrown around that people have said. Oh, that's a very wealthy kibbutz. It's a very left wing kibbutz, and also Kfar Aza, very secular. Nahal Oz, not religious, very secular, and so I don't know. So that's what they say. I'll take a breath now. Unfortunately, I didn't watch Eretz Nehederet last night, the Israeli Saturday Night Live. I will do that. I'm sure I'd have much more fodder if I did that, but I think 48 minutes of real news fodder was probably enough. All right, so that's it. I think I'm going to go. I think I got nothing else to say. I'm sure I'll think of 100 things after I hang up, but that's it. I mean, thank you so much that you guys joined, and for, I thank you for interacting. I wish I could hear you too. And I wish I was more techie and knew what I was doing. But anyway, this is great. So I would say if you're on YouTube, if you can subscribe, if you haven't, that would be awesome. And then hopefully you'll get alerts. I'm trying to learn I'll answer that in a second. I'm trying to learn what is a YouTube premiere, because I do want to start premiering some videos. But I don't even, I got to figure that out. Like, is it even something I should do? Anyway, is it safe to come? That is such a tricky question. I mean, it is really safe. Here in Jerusalem for the most part, I think. But that could obviously all change in an instant. Now, I have a friend who came and she's down the street, and we sat outside and last night, and it was fine. It was normal, and kids are going to school, and things are happening. So yeah, so in that sense, it's safe. But like I said, things could change in an instant. And yeah, if the flights will not be canceled, I would say, like, if you stick to, listen, if you're coming as a tourist on a tour group, it'll feel a little bit more limited because you won't get to all the places in the north. Possibly, it'll be a little bit more restricted. But if you're just coming as a person or a family or whatever, and you're just going to specific places, you're okay with Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and a few other places. It's so far so good. Yeah, hi Kim, that was you I was talking about. Yep. So Kim is here, and Kim said, yep, Kim, right? Kim, it was safe. And Daniel's here now. You want to say hi?
No.
No.
What are you doing?
Well, I'm doing a live. He's like, what is this? He's like, there's nobody talking back to you. It's so weird. Yeah, I know. Go ahead, call Mimi and Gong Gong. So, yeah, so anyway, if you could subscribe, and then also if you want to do the podcast is on all of the channels that you listen to podcasts, but I have not figured out how to put the buttons and link them. So anyway, like I said, techie stuff. Yeah, Emily, by the way, what was blasting in the background was Charity Church Mouse for the longest time. And I was like, I don't know how I'm still talking about the Ayatollah right now, because I got Charity Church Mouse in my right ear. So anyway, you can imagine. All right. Oh, Mimi's. So Daniel will probably call you in 2 seconds because it's time for him to go to bed. All right. Anyway, this is fun chatting with you guys. But I guess I'll go and stop rambling. It's hard to end it, right? Because it was so much fun. Anyway, all right, cool. Check back, because this might happen again more often, and especially when there's only one kid in the house. But we'll see. And all right, thanks for joining. This was fun, and watch the news tomorrow, because if there's going to be a big day, it'll be tomorrow. That's what they say. All right. Ciao from Jerusalem.